The anomalous signal first appeared on Dr. Elena Reyes's monitor at exactly 3:47 a.m. during her graveyard shift at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Most of her colleagues had left hours ago, leaving her alone with the soft hum of equipment and the endless stream of cosmic data flowing through the deep space network. At first, she dismissed it as an equipment glitch, a faint, rhythmic pattern varied in cosmic background radiation from the direction of Kepler 442. But when it repeated 17 minutes later with the exact same mathematical structure, Elena's heart skipped a beat. "Computer, isolate frequency band and enhance," she commanded, fingers flying across her keyboard. The pattern resolved into a complex series of pulses, too structured to be natural, too alien to be human. By dawn, she contacted her former colleague Dr. Amir Khan, now working at a private research institute after a controversial paper on xenolinguistics had effectively exiled him from academia. "I need you to see this," she said, her voice barely containing her excitement. "And I need your absolute discretion." Within 48 hours, they had assembled a small team in Elena's apartment. Sci-Fi O'Malley, a quantum computing prodigy whose algorithms had revolutionized signal processing, and Marcus Hernandez, an ex-military communications specialist with experience in the most classified government encryption protocols. "It's definitely artificial," Sci-Fi confirmed, her eyes red from staring at screens for 18 straight hours. "The signal contains embedded mathematical constants that appear universal, but expressed in a notation system unlike anything in our mathematical literature." Marcus leaned forward, pointing at a recurring sequence. "This section here, it's navigational data. I'd stake my life on it. Coordinates, velocity markers, gravitational compensation algorithms." "You're suggesting we intercepted what? Alien GPS?" Elena asked. Amir's expression was solemn. "Not GPS. A lighthouse. This is a navigational beacon, broadcasting on what they likely consider a secure private channel. It wasn't meant for us to hear, let alone understand." Over the next 3 weeks, they worked relentlessly, decoding layers of the signal. Government officials had been notified. Standard protocol for potential extraterrestrial communication, but most senior scientists dismissed their findings as misinterpreted natural phenomena. "They're going to classify everything tomorrow," Marcus warned, returning from a meeting with his former military contacts. "National Security Directive. All our research confiscated, and we'll each be assigned advisors to ensure compliance." That night, they'd made their decision. Using JPL's secondary array, Elena's access hadn't yet been revoked. They calculated a brief 43-second window when satellite alignment would allow direct transmission along the signal's origin path. "This is insane," Sci-Fi whispered as they uploaded their response. A carefully crafted message containing Earth's location, basic human biological information, and mathematical proofs showing their comprehension of the original signal. "We have no authorization to speak for humanity." "We're not speaking for humanity," Elena replied, her finger hovering over the transmission key. "We're 4 scientists answering a call. Sometimes asking forgiveness is better than permission. If there's actually someone listening," Marcus added, "everything changes tonight." Amir's hand covered Elena's on the keyboard. "The question isn't whether someone's listening. The question is, do we want to remain silent in a universe full of voices?" At 2:17 a.m., they sent humanity's first intentional interstellar message, not as representatives of Earth, but as curious minds answering a call never meant for them. 3 days later, the signal from Kepler 442 abruptly changed its pattern. Someone had heard them. Someone was responding. And they were coming. Elena woke to the sound of her apartment door splintering open. Black-clad figures poured into her bedroom, laser sights dancing across her walls. "Dr. Elena Reyes, you're being detained under National Security Directive 1138, a voice commanded through a tactical mask. "Do not resist." Within hours, Elena found herself in a windowless room at a facility she suspected was nowhere near civilization. Across the table sat a stone-faced woman in a crisp suit. "I'm Director Harlow, Extraterrestrial Intelligence Containment Division," she said, sliding forward a tablet showing Elena's transmission. "You've potentially initiated first contact without authorization. Do you understand the gravity of what you've done?" Elena maintained her composure. "We intercepted a signal not meant for us." We responded. "Scientific curiosity." "Scientific curiosity doesn't override planetary security," Harlow interrupted. "Your entire team has been separated and placed under house arrest. All data has been quarantined." For 3 weeks, Elena endured daily interrogations. Through careful questioning, she learned Amir was being held in Washington, Marcus in Colorado, and Starbound somewhere overseas. Then something changed. During her 4th week of confinement, Harlow entered with a different expression, something approaching fear. "We need to talk about the response," she said quietly. Response. Harlow activated a wall screen showing astronomical data. 72 hours after your transmission, observatories worldwide detected acceleration signatures heading toward our solar system. Multiple objects, moving at speeds our physics barely understands. Elena felt her stomach drop. How long until they arrive? At current velocity, 9 days. Word leaked to the public within hours. Stock markets plummeted. Religious leaders called for prayer or preparation for judgment. Military installations worldwide went to highest alert. Social media exploded with conspiracy theories and doomsday preparations. Under heavy guard, Elena was transported to a hastily established command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. There she was reunited with her team, all looking drawn and exhausted. "We've been monitoring the approaching vessels," Starbound explained, showing Elena their trajectory models. "Something strange is happening. They're not taking the most direct route to Earth." Marcus pointed to oscillations in their course. "These patterns suggest internal disagreement among their pilots. Some want to approach directly. Others are more cautious. Or they're deploying in tactical formation," suggested a general who had been silently observing. Amir, who had been granted access to the original signal data, shook his head. "I've made a breakthrough in translation. The beacon wasn't just navigational. It contained warnings about cosmic radiation clusters near their outposts. We essentially interrupted their hazard broadcasts with our hello." The approaching vessels established orbit around Jupiter's moons rather than coming directly to Earth, a decision that confounded military strategists but slightly eased global panic. Using JPL's most powerful telescopes, they captured images of the visitors. Massive crystalline structures with organic components, unlike any human spacecraft design. Elena discovered through coded messages smuggled by a sympathetic guard that military leaders were preparing to launch experimental weapons toward the visitors. A preemptive strike. The note read, "Authorization comes tomorrow." That night, Elena's team made their second unauthorized decision. Using Marcus's military credentials, they bypassed security protocols and transmitted directly to the alien vessels. "We're the ones who responded to your signal." The message read, "We come in peace and wish to establish proper communications. Our military leaders do not speak for all of humanity." The response came just minutes later. A single image transmitted to screens worldwide. A crystalline being extending what appeared to be an appendage, palm open in a gesture unmistakable across species. Peace. Humanity had less than 48 hours to prepare for the first official first contact, all because of a signal never meant for them. A hastily assembled diplomatic team boarded the modified SpaceX vessel bound for Jupiter. Despite military objections, Elena and her colleagues were included, not from trust but necessity. They understood the signal better than anyone else on the planet. "Remember," instructed Ambassador Chen, a veteran diplomat with 30 years of international negotiation experience, "we represent all of Earth now. No unauthorized communications, no independent initiatives." Elena exchanged knowing glances with her team. They'd already defied global authorities twice. Third time's the charm. Their transport approached the makeshift meeting point, a retrofitted space station originally intended for mining operations around Europa, now humanity's first interstellar embassy. Through the viewport, Alina saw the alien vessel up close for the first time. Its crystalline surface pulsed with internal light patterns that seemed almost circulatory, as if the ship were partially alive. Biochemical technology, Amir whispered. Their engineering and biology have merged. The airlock cycled, and humanity held its collective breath. The Mithrani delegates entered the chamber with deliberate grace, hovering, cephalopod-like beings with translucent bodies housing visible neural networks that glowed in patterns reminiscent of the signal Alina had first detected. 3 primary appendages branched into countless smaller manipulators that moved with unsettling precision. Ambassador Chen stepped forward with a practiced diplomatic smile, but the lead Mithrani, later identified as Selta, spoke first, its voice emerging from a device that converted neural impulses to sound waves. "You are not cataloged," it said simply, neural networks pulsing in what Alina interpreted as confusion. "You should not have heard our transmission. You should not have comprehended it. Yet you responded." The human delegation had prepared statements about peaceful intentions and cultural exchange, but this opening caught them off guard. "What do you mean, not cataloged?" Alina asked before anyone could stop her. Cell Tao's appendages rippled in what might have been surprise. "All sentient species are cataloged by the consortium upon reaching specific developmental thresholds. Your world has been observed, classified as pre-spacefaring isolate designation 3291C. Observer protocols dictate non-interference until autonomous interstellar capabilities are achieved." Ambassador Chen attempted to regain control of the dialogue, speaking of Earth's achievements and humanity's peaceful intentions, but Xiaovan interrupted. "You weren't coming to Earth because of our message, were you? Your navigation beacon mentioned this sector for another reason entirely." The Mithrani delegates' neural networks pulsed rapidly. "Correct. Our mining operations on Europa have been ongoing for 73 of your years. The transmission you intercepted contained routine updates about cosmic radiation clusters affecting our outposts. Your message was unexpected." The human delegation exchanged stunned looks. Aliens had been mining in their solar system for decades undetected. As formal diplomatic exchanges continued in the main chamber, Alina's team noticed disturbing inconsistencies in the Mithrani explanations. During a brief recess, Marcus showed them his notes. Their communication patterns shift when discussing certain topics. "Classic deception indicators," he whispered. "They're hiding something major." Amir nodded in agreement. "I've been recording their ship transmissions. There's frequent mention of something called Consortium Directive 7 whenever they discuss our signal interception." Alina made a decision. While the ambassadors were distracted with formal protocol discussions, she approached Cell Tao privately. "Your beacon wasn't just about radiation warnings," she said bluntly. "Our response has created problems for you with this consortium, hasn't it?" The Mithrani's neural network briefly flashed patterns that the translation software couldn't interpret, but Alina recognized mathematics within the pulses, probability calculations. "Perceptive," Cell Tao finally responded. "By responding to a secure channel, your species has technically applied for consortium membership, centuries before scheduled contact. This creates complications." "What kind of complications?" Alina pressed. The Mithrani's translator produced what might have been a sigh. "Other consortium delegates arrive tomorrow. Some will advocate for your immediate technological uplift. Others will demand quarantine. A few." The alien hesitated. "A few will suggest more permanent solutions to the disruption you represent." The meeting room's lights flickered as distant sensors detected new vessels approaching Jupiter, much larger than the Mithrani ship. Humanity's time for preparation had just run out. The diplomatic station trembled as 5 new vessels positioned themselves around Jupiter's orbit. Each displayed markedly different designs. One appeared to be composed entirely of interlocking metal plates constantly reconfiguring themselves. Another seemed to bend light around its hull, becoming visible only when it moved. A third pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that made Alina's eyes water. The consortium representatives have arrived, Cell Tau announced, neural networks flickering with what Alina now recognized as anxiety. I must warn you, they were not prepared for this meeting. Some have traveled for weeks at maximum velocity. Ambassador Chen straightened her jacket. We'll receive them with all diplomatic courtesy. That would be inadvisable, Cell Tau replied. Consortium protocol for unscheduled species integration is complex. Allow me to mediate initially. As Cell Tau departed, Alina pulled her team aside. Record everything. We need to understand what we've stumbled into. Within hours, the station's main chamber had been transformed into an interspecies forum unlike anything humanity had imagined. Beings of wildly different morphologies and apparent physiologies gathered around a modified holographic interface. The insectoid vexed hive representatives, 3-meter-tall creatures with compound eyes and iridescent carapaces, insisted on immediate technological sharing with humans. Developmental asymmetry creates instability, they chittered through translation devices. Balance must be restored. The silicon-based quorum, crystalline entities that seemed to communicate through light patterns, countered with demands for Earth's immediate quarantine. Protocol violation indicates inherent risk factors. Isolation until proper assessment is completed. Most disturbing were the luminals, beams that appeared as shifting patterns of light, with no discernible physical form, who seemed oddly fascinated by human art and music samples included in the diplomatic package. Your species creates meaning from patterns in ways outside predictive algorithms, they commented, their translation carrying harmonic undertones. This requires further study. Ambassador Chen performed admirably, maintaining humanity's dignity while navigating alien diplomatic protocols she was learning in real time. But during a brief recess, she confided in Alina's team. They're treating us like children who've wandered into an adults-only venue, she whispered. Half want to adopt us, half want to throw us out, and all of them are talking around us rather than to us. Amir had been unusually quiet, studying his tablet. There's something else going on, he said finally. I've been analyzing language patterns across species. They keep referencing something called the void when they think we're not listening. The diplomatic sessions grew increasingly tense as a fundamental truth emerged. By responding to the signal, humanity had unwittingly disrupted power balances within the consortium. Earth's unexpected technological capabilities represented a wild card in carefully maintained hierarchies. During a particularly heated exchange, the Vex Hive representative turned directly to Alina. You, signal responder, how did your species decrypt our navigational algorithms? Those encryption protocols were developed over 6,000 years. Alina glanced at Ambassador Chen, who nodded slightly. We didn't decrypt anything, Alina explained. We recognized patterns consistent with mathematical constants and applied information theory principles. Dr. Khan developed a quantum algorithm FAT. Impossible, interrupted the quorum representative, its crystalline form pulsing red. That approach was abandoned by the consortium millennia ago as fundamentally inefficient. Inefficient but functional, Marcus countered. Sometimes the scenic route gets you to the same destination. As the aliens debated the implications, Starbound nudged Alina and pointed to her tablet. She had been scanning the station's systems and found something alarming. Data transfers from Earth's historical databases to consortium ships, far exceeding the approved cultural exchange parameters. They're downloading everything, she whispered. Art, literature, music, scientific development paths, military history. They're studying us intensively. Before Alina could respond, an alert sounded throughout the station. A new vessel had arrived, smaller than the others, but somehow more imposing in its perfect geometric precision. The adjudicator, Cell Tau announced, neural patterns conveying clear apprehension. The consortium's highest authority for species integration disputes. Elena watched as a single being emerged from the transport tube, a tall, graceful figure with features that seemed deliberately designed to be inoffensive to most species. This was Kira, and its entrance silenced the chamber immediately. The human situation, it announced in flawless English, requires extraordinary measures. Kira, the adjudicator, requested a separate facility for evaluating humanity's technological capabilities. Within hours, the station's secondary module had been transformed into an examination chamber filled with equipment from both Earth and various consortium species. "We will conduct a standard developmental assessment," Kira explained, its voice melodious yet precise. "This will determine your species' appropriate designation and integration pathway." Elena exchanged worried glances with her team. Integration pathway sounded suspiciously like a euphemism. The tests began with computational challenges. The consortium representatives watched with barely concealed condescension as human technicians were presented with alien computing interfaces. To their visible surprise, Starbound adapted quickly, navigating the unfamiliar systems with intuitive leaps that left the observers murmuring. "Your approach is unorthodox," noted a quorum representative when Starbound solved a complex optimization problem using a method that appeared to combine quantum principles with analog computing techniques. "We work with what we have," she replied with a shrug. "Earth doesn't have access to stable quantum fields yet, so we developed hybrid approaches." As the assessments continued, a pattern emerged that Elena found fascinating. The consortium species had each developed along highly specialized technological pathways, optimizing specific approaches and abandoning others. Humans, working in isolation and with limited resources, had pursued multiple parallel development tracks simultaneously, creating a technological tapestry that appeared chaotic, but surprisingly robust. During a materials science evaluation, Marcus demonstrated Earth's recent breakthroughs in carbon nanotube applications, producing a material sample that the VexHive examiner studied with increasing agitation. This manufacturing approach was deemed non-viable by consortium materials science councils 3 millennia ago, it chittered. "Maybe you gave up too soon," Marcus suggested. The most revealing moment came during an unexpected test. Kira presented the human team with an alien musical instrument, a crystalline structure that responded to both touch and proximity. "This is not a technology assessment," Kira explained. "It is a creativity assessment." After brief experimentation, Amir produced a haunting melody that caused the luminal observers to pulse with bright patterns. When asked to explain his approach, he replied, "I noticed the harmonic structures followed mathematical relationships similar to our Fibonacci sequence. I just applied some basic music theory principles from Earth." Kira's expression remained neutral, but Elena detected subtle changes in its posture. "Interesting. You derived universal harmonic principles independently." As the testing concluded, Elena found herself alone with Kira in the observation deck, watching Jupiter's swirling storms below. "Your species represents an anomaly," the adjudicator stated. "Your technological development has followed pathways the consortium abandoned or never explored. This creates possibilities." "Possibilities for what?" Elena asked. Kira hesitated, then activated a private communication field around them. 3-dimensional projections appeared, showing star systems being enveloped by what appeared to be moving darkness. "This is real-time footage from the Proxima Centauri colony," it explained. "What you see consuming the outer settlement is what we call the Void. It has destroyed 17 systems in the past decade. Our conventional defensive technologies have proven ineffective." Elena studied the footage with growing horror. "This is what the consortium has been hiding from us." "Yes," Kira acknowledged. "The consortium follows a principle of non-interference with developing species, partially to protect them, but mainly to protect itself. Integration is carefully managed to preserve stability." "But you need something different now," Elena realized. "Something unpredictable." Kira's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "The consortium has spent millennia perfecting its technological approaches. Perhaps what we need now are approaches that were never perfected, human approaches. What exactly are you proposing? A human task force, operating outside normal consortium protocols, Kirzan replied. To study the void directly. That sounds suspiciously like a suicide mission, Elena said. Perhaps, the adjudicator acknowledged. But extinction is the alternative. For all of us, the consortium vessel Eternal Inquiry accelerated toward the galaxy's edge, carrying Earth's hastily assembled team and representatives from 4 consortium species. Elena watched through the observation deck as familiar constellations distorted and shifted, a visual reminder of how far they were traveling from home. We're crossing the Perseus Arm now, explained Voraxnell, a veteran Mithrani scientist who had been studying the void longer than humans had been using electricity. The void first appeared in the outer Scutum Centaurus region 2 decades ago. Their destination was Outpost Terminus, a massive research station concealed within a rogue planet's shadow. As they approached, Elena realized the facility was far larger than she'd imagined. A sprawling complex built into an asteroid with hundreds of sensor arrays extending outward like metallic spines. This is where we make our stand, Voraxnell stated grimly. 27 worlds have already been lost. Outpost Terminus monitors the expansion patterns and tests defensive countermeasures. The human team was assigned cramped quarters deep within the facility. Despite Kirzan's endorsement, many consortium scientists regarded them with skepticism or outright hostility. They think we're primitive, Marcus observed during their first meal in the communal area, where various species consumed nutrient solutions specifically formulated for their biologies. Did you see how the quorum delegation physically moved away when we sat down? Can't blame them, Scivan replied. We're the new kids who somehow skipped several grades. Plus, we eat with our mouths in front of them. Their integration improved somewhat when Amir began voluntarily assisting in the linguistics lab, where researchers were attempting to identify patterns in the energy fluctuations emanating from the void. They've been treating these emissions as random noise, he explained to Elena during a brief rest period. But I've been running them through algorithms we developed for detecting patterns in seemingly chaotic datasets. There's something there, I'm sure of it. On their 4th day at the outpost, the alarm sounded. The void had accelerated unexpectedly, consuming an uninhabited system in hours rather than days. The observation deck became crowded with scientists of various species analyzing the incoming data. Elena watched the holographic display with growing horror. The darkness moved with purpose, enveloping stars and planets not as a passive cloud, but with tendrils that reached and grasped. It's behaving differently, she noted, pointing to the movement patterns, almost like it's responding to our observation. The luminal scientist beside her pulsed with agitation. Impossible. The void is a natural phenomenon. Complex, but without consciousness. Then why does it change behavior when we observe it more intensely? Elena challenged. Every time you increase sensor focus, it alters its expansion pattern. Before the debate could continue, a violent tremor shook the station. Emergency lighting activated as main power fluctuated. We're under attack, a Vex Hive's security officer announced. Internal systems compromised. In the chaos that followed, Elena and her team discovered the outpost had been sabotaged. Critical defensive systems were failing, and the void's expansion had suddenly accelerated directly toward them. While consortium species followed established emergency protocols, evacuation procedures executed with mathematical precision, the humans demonstrated crisis management skills honed by a planet prone to natural disasters. Marcus repurposed communication arrays as makeshift sensors. Sci-Fi jury-rigged the power distribution network to maintain life support. Amir, analyzing emergency data feeds, made a startling discovery. The void isn't just responding to our observation, he reported, showing Elena his findings. It's specifically reacting to certain scanning frequencies. Look, when we use quantum phase detectors, it accelerates. When we switch to gravitational mapping, it slows. Elena studied the correlation graphs with growing excitement. We're not just watching the void, she realized. The void is watching us. She rushed to the main research hub where Vorex Nell was coordinating emergency operations, pushing past security barriers. I need access to the primary sensor array, she demanded. I have a theory that might save us all. The Mithrani scientist regarded her with exhausted resignation. The array is losing power. We have perhaps 30 minutes before complete shutdown. That's all I need, Elena replied, because I don't think the void is consuming reality. I think it's trying to communicate with it. The observation deck erupted in dismissive objections when Elena shared her theory. The void cannot be a communicative entity, a quorum scientist insisted, crystalline form pulsing red with agitation. We've studied it for decades. It destroys everything it touches. No, Elena countered. It transforms everything it touches. Look at your own data. Matter isn't annihilated. It's converted into something your instruments can't properly measure. As the station shuttered again, evacuation announcements echoed through the corridors. Most consortium representatives were already boarding emergency vessels. Wait, Elena pleaded. If I'm wrong, you lose nothing by letting us try. If I'm right, we might stop this thing. Vorex Nell hesitated, neural networks flickering in what Elena now recognized as internal debate. You have 20 minutes before final evacuation protocols lock down the remaining systems. Elena's team moved with urgent precision. While Marcus reconfigured the main sensor array, Sci-Fi adapted the station's communication systems to generate new output patterns. Amir worked furiously on his tablet, developing an algorithm that combined Earth mathematical principles with what they'd learned about consortium communication protocols. If the void is trying to communicate, Elena explained as they worked, then it's doing so in a way that's completely foreign to consortium science. But human history is full of first contact situations between radically different cultures. We've developed entire fields around deciphering unknown languages and making ourselves understood. Sci-Fi looked up from her rewired console. Like when we cracked Egyptian hieroglyphics using the Rosetta Stone. Exactly, Elena nodded. We need a shared reference point. And I think music might be our Rosetta Stone. Their makeshift communication device incorporated principles from human music theory, mathematics, and quantum physics. While consortium members watched with skeptical fascination, Elena programmed a sequence of mathematical constants expressed through modulated energy pulses, the universal language of physics set to a rhythm derived from the Fibonacci sequence. Broadcasting now, Marcus announced, engaging the modified array. For 30 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. The void continued its inexorable approach toward the station. Then, suddenly, it paused. Energy fluctuations changing. Amir reported, studying incoming data. It's responding to the pattern. On the main display, the void's expansion halted completely. Then, to everyone's astonishment, it began pulsing in a rhythm that precisely mirrored their transmission, but with subtle variations. It's answering us, Elena whispered. Sci-Fi, can you analyze the response? Working feverishly, Sci-Fi decoded the pattern. It's sending back the same mathematical constants, but expanded. Like it's showing us it understands and wants to add more to the conversation. Elena instructed the system to respond with another sequence, this one incorporating visual mathematical representations of basic physical laws. The void's next response came faster, more complex, showing an understanding of concepts beyond current human physics. As the exchange continued, the void began to change form. A tendril of darkness extended toward the station, not engulfing it but shifting into something new. Matter coalesced from the darkness, forming a physical construct that approached the observation deck's exterior viewport. It's creating an avatar, Vorex Nell observed, neural patterns displaying clear shock. A physical interface for communication. The construct pressed against the transparent barrier, a shifting, geometric form that seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially elsewhere. When Alina placed her hand against the viewport, the entity mirrored her gesture. Using their improvised communication system, they established rudimentary dialogue. The entity transmitted complex mathematical concepts that Emir struggled to translate. "It's not destroying worlds," he finally announced, looking up from his calculations with wide eyes. "It's studying them by converting matter to a state compatible with its perception. It exists in a different dimensional configuration. What we see as destruction is actually translation." "Can you explain that we'd prefer not to be translated?" Marcus asked dryly. Alina nodded, composing a new transmission incorporating mathematical models of mutual existence without destruction. The response came immediately, a complex equation that consortium scientists stared at in bewilderment. "It's offering an alternative," Alina explained, excitement building in her voice. "A method of information exchange that doesn't require physical transformation." As the evacuation countdown reached its final minutes, the consortium witnesses watched in stunned silence as humans established first contact with an entity their greatest minds had dismissed as a mindless, destructive force. The void wasn't consuming the galaxy. It was simply saying hello, in a language only humans had fought to answer. 6 months after the breakthrough at Outpost Terminus, Earth hosted the first Galactic Consortium Summit ever held on a developing world. The United Nations headquarters in New York had been transformed for the occasion, its normally staid chambers now accommodating beings of wildly different physiologies and environmental needs. Alina stood at the window of the preparation room, watching traffic flow along First Avenue. The city below continued its normal rhythms, seemingly unaffected by the fact that representatives from 37 interstellar species were gathering just overhead. "Hard to believe it's only been half a year," Emir said, joining her at the window. "Sometimes I still expect to wake up and find this was all an elaborate dream." "If it is, we're all having the same one," Alina replied with a smile. The door opened as Starbound and Marcus entered, accompanied by Kirjan. The adjudicator now wore a modified environmental suit that allowed it to move comfortably in Earth's atmosphere. "The proceedings will begin shortly," Kirjan announced. "Are you prepared, Dr. Reyes?" Alina nodded, straightening her formal attire, a blend of traditional human diplomatic dress with subtle elements incorporating consortium design principles. "As ready as I'll ever be." The main chamber fell silent as they entered. At the podium stood the Secretary General, flanked by Orcs now, and other key consortium representatives. The gathered delegates, human and alien alike, rose in recognition. "Today marks a historic occasion," the Secretary General began. "The formal recognition of Earth as a full member of the Galactic Consortium, the first world ever to receive such status before developing independent interstellar travel capabilities." The audience erupted in applause, translated through various means into expressions of approval appropriate to each species' cultural norms. "This unprecedented acceleration of protocol," the Secretary General continued, "reflects the extraordinary contributions made by humanity in establishing communication with the entity formerly known as the Void, now recognized as the Transmuters, a collective intelligence from another universal configuration." On the main display, images showed the communication relays now established at safe distances from inhabited systems. The Transmuters had withdrawn from previously affected regions, now exchanging knowledge about 11-dimensional physics for information about human creativity and art, a trade that both sides considered invaluable. "I now invite Dr. Alina Reyes, who will lead Earth's new interstellar initiative, to deliver the formal acceptance address." As Alina approached the podium, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Training centers had been established worldwide to prepare humanity for their new cosmic role. The integration of human perspective had fundamentally reshaped consortium politics, introducing concepts of creative problem-solving and adaptability to cultures that had prized optimization and predictability for millennia. Her communicator vibrated subtly against her wrist. Glancing down, she saw an urgent message from the JPL monitoring station. "New signal detected. Origin. Direction of Andromeda. pattern unlike anything from consortium or transmuters, clearly directed at Earth with deliberate intent. Elena looked up at the assembled delegates, beings of incredible diversity united in this moment of celebration, and smiled. The universe, it seemed, held many more surprises. Humanity's accidental entrance onto the galactic stage had only just begun. Distinguished representatives, she began, setting aside her prepared remarks. I stand before you today not as someone special, but as a symbol of humanity's greatest quality, our curiosity. When we intercepted a signal never meant for us, we didn't just listen. We responded. She glanced again at her communicator, thinking of the new signal waiting to be answered. And that, I believe, will always be humanity's role in this vast community we join today, to hear what others miss, to answer when others remain silent, to find connection where others see only darkness. The applause that followed rippled across the chamber like a wave, species after species joining in acknowledgement. As Elena stepped away from the podium to rejoin her team, she leaned close to whisper to them. Looks like we have another signal to respond to. Anyone up for another adventure? Their grins told her everything she needed to know. The signal hadn't been meant for them, but by responding anyway, humans had forever changed the galaxy. And they were just getting started.